Imagine receiving as a gift a creepy doll with a sinister appearance, but for inexplicable reasons, you develop a peculiar bond with it, until eventually you discover that it goes by the name Chucky, and that its body houses the soul of a serial killer who had a penchant for strangling his victims. What would you do in this situation? This is the story of the movie Child's Play, released in 1988, where we'll highlight the mistakes and discuss the best decisions that would certainly help the characters or you to get out of this. But first, it's very important that you leave your like, as this will ensure more new videos on the channel, and without further ado, let's go to the video. On the streets of Chicago, Charlie Ray, a serial killer, is chased by Detective Mike to a toy store after being abandoned by his accomplice Eddie. In the store, the killer exchanges gunfire with the detective and ends up being shot in the chest. However, the guy had an ace up his sleeve. He was knowledgeable about a voodoo ritual, and after uttering some words, Charlie transfers his soul into the body of a doll. A few days later, we meet little Andy, who was preparing a nice breakfast for his mother, as it was her birthday and he was very eager to open his gifts, hoping to receive a good guy doll. There was even a package that seemed to be from the toy, but it was just clothes, which didn't please the boy much. At least he got a toolkit from the good guy. Karen explained to him that the doll was very expensive and that she didn't have enough money to buy it. However, at work, her friend Maggie found a man selling a good guy doll for $30, and Karen didn't think twice and bought the desired toy for her son. And yes guys, it's the same doll that the serial killer transferred his soul into, and it didn't take long for us to realize that it wasn't just another doll, as on that same night Karen had to go to work, and Maggie stayed as Andy's babysitter. After putting Andy to sleep along with the doll, she hears someone walking around the apartment and is attacked by the doll using a hammer. Okay, even though the doll is possessed by the soul of a killer, apparently it doesn't have supernatural strength, and Maggie could have avoided her death, as the doll is significantly smaller than her, and consequently, the woman could have restrained it. Additionally, upon hearing noises in the apartment, she should have checked if it wasn't the boy and then contacted the authorities, reporting an intruder on the premises. We can't ignore the fact that Karen gifted her son with a toolbox. Although they were toys, there was a risk of the boy getting hurt, since one of them was used by the doll to attack Maggie. Karen arrives home bewildered, but Detective Mike reveals that her friend had been thrown from the apartment window, and the only clues were Andy's toy hammer and some footprints on the counter, which, although evidently smaller, Mike thinks were from the boy, even though he claims the doll was behind the incident. Before going to bed, Andy revealed the truth to his mother, saying that the doll claimed his name was Charles Lee Ray, and that she could call him Chucky. However, Karen attributed these statements to her son's imagination. But the problem is that, even knowing that Chucky did that to Maggie, the boy refused to sleep with his mother and continued to stay with the toy. It would have been wiser for Karen to stay with her son or go to sleep in another hotel, since someone supposedly invaded that apartment and something terrible happened in it. Not to mention that Karen could thoroughly investigate this Charles character, which would inevitably lead her to discover that Detective Mike was responsible for his death in the Good Guy toy store, making her realize that the boy was telling the truth, and that there was something sinister inside that doll. The next day, Chucky convinced Andy to take him to his accomplice Eddie's address, a rather unusual situation, as the boy left school unnoticed and went to the most dangerous part of the city without being robbed, considering that the doll was worth $100. Upon arriving at the location, Chucky began his revenge on Eddie for abandoning him at the beginning of the movie. He let the gas from the stove leak, and realizing that his house had been invaded, Eddie started shooting, resulting in a big explosion. Okay, despite Eddie being clearly terrified, it's implausible that he wouldn't notice the smell of gas spreading through the house, which would certainly make him hesitate before pulling the trigger again. Moreover, it's surprising that no one noticed the boy's absence from school and contacted Karen. After all, she only found out about her son's disappearance when the police found him at another alleged crime scene. Andy is again considered a suspect, and Karen doesn't believe he did it. The boy even tries to explain that Chucky is to blame, but no one believes him. Consequently, the boy is admitted to a psychiatric hospital, while Karen returns home and decides to investigate the doll's box, realizing that all this time the toy was functioning without batteries. Without much thought, Karen decides to put Chucky in the fireplace. However, he rebels against the woman and manages to escape through the elevator. Karen hastily leaves the apartment and luckily finds Detective Mike, whom she tries to explain the situation to, showing the bite on her arm. But as expected, he doesn't believe her. However, determined to uncover the truth, Karen confronted the man who sold her the doll. However, he didn't understand and reacted violently. Fortunately, Detective Mike intervened and obtained valuable information. The good guy doll had been rescued from the toy store that was destroyed last weekend, and Mike began connecting the dots, realizing that the explosion site and Charles's death were interconnected. But the confirmation that the doll was alive came when Mike faced Chucky, who tried to strangle him inside the car. But after losing control of the vehicle and flipping it, the detective managed to shoot at the doll. Now, Mike was fully aware that the doll was alive, but in his confrontation with Chucky, he could have acted more decisively and restrained the doll. Despite being taken by surprise, he could have grabbed his gun when attacked and shot Chucky, or simply stopped the car and held onto the doll, as he is probably stronger than the toy. As for Karen, despite being attacked, she could have easily trapped Chucky in the fireplace and set fire to him. But forget that. Mike and Karen are going to investigate Charles Ray's apartment, where they discover who was the master of the serial killer, who had taught the dark art of magic, allowing Charles to transfer his consciousness to the doll. However, Chucky was not merely a doll. He manifested more human-like than ever, as evidenced by the blood inexplicably on his wound. In search of answers, Chucky seeks out his master John, who reveals that the longer Chucky's soul remains in the doll, the more humanized he will become. However, John refuses to help, which leads to terrible consequences, as he is tortured by Chucky through his own voodoo doll. It doesn't make much sense to have your own voodoo doll, but after further research, I found out that such dolls are used in healing rituals. However, it is clear that John should have kept his voodoo doll more carefully and securely, or better yet, not have taught black magic to a serial killer. Not to mention that John could have a doll for each of his students, especially if they are criminals, since, like Charlie, they could use the spells against the spellcaster. Under torture, John reveals that the only way to escape the doll's body is by transferring his soul to the first human, to whom he revealed his true identity, in this case Andy. Determined, Chucky heads towards the boy, while Karen and Mike find John on the brink of death, who in his last seconds of life informs them that the only way to stop Chucky is by hitting his heart. At the hospital, Andy was terrified to realize Chucky's presence, which the doctor simply diagnosed as a boy's crisis. Even so, Chucky managed to grab the keys and invade the boy's room. However, Andy managed to escape by running through the hospital until he reached the ward where the doctor tried to sedate him, but Chucky intervened, cutting the doctor's leg and electrocuting him. Andy seized the opportunity and fled home, but despite hiding and hitting Chucky with a baseball bat, the doll managed to knock him to the ground and initiate a sinister ritual, transferring his consciousness to the boy. Luckily, Mike and Karen arrive and interrupt the ritual. Furious, Chucky attacked Mike, leaving him injured throughout the movie, which in my opinion doesn't make sense. Despite being injured, this wouldn't prevent Mike from confronting Chucky. Furthermore, as a policeman, Mike could have brought a dog, and surely it would have torn apart that doll in seconds. However, the responsibility to eliminate Chucky fell to Karen, who after a climactic sequence with several twists, and even after being set on fire, the doll survived, and although charred, he was still determined to attack everyone. Karen shoots the doll, separating its limbs, and even after numerous parts of its body are torn off, it persists in moving towards Karen. When everyone believed the doll was dead, Jack, Mike's partner, enters the apartment. Ignoring Mike's warning not to touch the doll, Jack picks up Chucky's head and ironically states that he was dead and nothing but a mere doll. However, a part of Chucky's body silently emerges through the ventilation and grabs Jack's neck. Luckily, Mike finally decides to be useful and manages to hit the doll's heart, putting an end to the threat. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video and share in the comments what you would do if you were a character in this movie. Don't forget to subscribe for more adventures, and until next time.